after yet another fight with my boyfriend. He changed the door code and locked me out, leaving only a cold remark. Take some time to reflect on what you've done. I stood outside the apartment until the streetlights came on at dusk, still unable to figure out what I had done wrong. He was still furious. He always had a twisted way of showing love, easily angered for no clear reason. I used to think that all it took was patience, that as long as I gently coaxed him, it would be fine. But this time, I really couldn't be bothered. I didn't want to comfort him anymore. Chapter 1. I walked into the study. What met my eyes were scattered, torn up design drafts all over the floor. Nicholas stood in the middle of the mess, his eyes filled with resentment as he stared at me. I took a deep breath and bent down to pick up the shredded sketches, designs I had rushed through with 2 all-nighters. And yet he destroyed them in under 2 minutes. The room was silent except for the faint rustling of paper. The air pressure felt heavy and suffocating. Nicholas finally spoke, accusingly. All you ever care about are those damn drafts. Only then did I notice his injured hand. A large blister on his index finger had burst while he was ripping up the pages, and blood was slowly seeping out. Nicholas glared at me fiercely, unmoving. In the end, I gave in. I brought over the first aid kit and started treating his wound. While I bandaged him, Nicholas said, "Is work really more important than your health? You already have a weak stomach, yet you don't even eat on time." On the table, the freshly made fish porridge was still steaming, its scent faint and comforting. Nicholas, someone used to being pampered, had actually gone into the kitchen and cooked for me, and hurt himself in the process. I was too caught up with work and told him to just leave the food there, that I'd eat it later. But after stepping away just to use the bathroom, I came back to find all my work torn to pieces. How many times have I told you? Don't ruin your health for work, Cressida. Have you ever truly listened to what I say? Everything he said sounded like he cared about me. Yet his tone was ice cold. He was always like this, doing things for my own good, while treating me like a child he barely tolerated. I looked at the shredded design drafts, then at the steaming fish porridge, and I sighed a long, tired sigh. Forget it. Let it go this time. After all, it's been almost 5 years. I couldn't bear to throw it all away. But if it happens again, I'll tell him it's over. I never expected again to come so soon. On the day of our 5-year anniversary, I came home carrying a cake, only to find the door wouldn't open. I'd left my key inside. And the code, even after 3 tries, was still wrong. I called Nicholas. He didn't answer until 10 minutes later, and coldly said, "Take some time to reflect on what you've done." I stood outside until night fell, streetlights flickering on one by one. Still couldn't figure out what I'd done wrong. Then Nicholas called, "Have you realized your mistake?" I didn't reply. His voice grew colder. "Then don't bother coming in." Unlike before, I didn't beg for an explanation. I simply replied, "Okay." I threw the cake into the trash, and under the dim streetlights, I walked into the night, step by step, leaving behind the place I had called home for 5 years. Chapter 2. I found a hotel to stay in for the time being. At 2 a.m., I checked my phone. Not a single message from Nicholas. He was an incredibly proud man, never the type to apologize first, even when he cared. He wouldn't say it outright. He always kept his true emotions buried deep inside. It was always up to me to guess what he was feeling, just to catch a glimpse of what was going on in his heart. I never understood. Why couldn't he just show his love openly? Until a friend told me, "Nicholas is just a prideful tsundere. Coax him a little, and it'll blow over." But I was too tired. I didn't want to be the one lowering myself anymore. I didn't want to keep coaxing him. So I sent Nicholas a message. "Let's break up. Ending things here was the best conclusion for both of us." The next day at work, Cashin saw I came alone and asked, "Nicholas didn't drop you off? Did you two have a fight?" Cashin was not only Nicholas's friend, but also my supervisor. He'd witnessed our relationship over the years, so he could spot the cracks at a glance. He tried to console me. "You know how Nicholas is. He might look calm and collected on the outside, but deep down, he cares more than anyone." I understood that. I knew what kind of person Nicholas was. The first time I met him, back then, I was accompanying a senior from the industry to an exchange conference. The senior was close with the Ning family and gave Nicholas, who was also attending, a ride. When he got in the car, Nicholas hadn't sat properly and bumped into me before I could say anything. He scolded me first, defensive and prickly, but the tips of his ears turned red. I felt a mischievous urge and teased. So how do you plan to make up for this? Should I offer myself to you? His face turned beet red. And then he quickly assumed a lofty tone. Plenty of people like me. You won't stand a chance in this life. Maybe in your next one. Then he unconsciously bit his lip and quickly looked away when our eyes met. I just smiled and didn't think much of it. Right before getting out of the car, Nicholas held his phone in front of me. I looked at him, confused. He turned his head away, refusing to meet my eyes. Give me your number. You gave me a ride today. So I want to repay the favor when I get a chance. The senior winked at me, and I understood right away. With the senior's strong ties to the Ning family, Nicholas Ning didn't need me as a go-between to return a simple favor. He obviously just wanted my number and came up with that awkward excuse. Even back then, I knew he was awkward, always saying the opposite of what he meant. That wasn't some terrible flaw. I could accept it until our first real fight after we got together. That day, I had just completed a major project and had planned to celebrate with him, but I waited the entire day, and he never showed up. He didn't answer his phone, didn't reply to messages. I was so worried I nearly called the police. When he finally arrived, his face was cold and he didn't say a word. Later, I found out from a friend, he was upset because I hadn't worn the necklace he gave me that day. He had picked that necklace with care, and because I accepted it but didn't wear it, he felt like I didn't appreciate it or value him. So he sulked and disappeared. But he could have just told me directly, instead of making me guess. I'm not a mind reader. I couldn't always decode the contradictions between what he said and what he felt. Another time, I came home from work utterly exhausted and passed out on the couch. When I woke up in the middle of the night, Nicholas was sitting beside me, his tone flat and emotionless. Since you're so busy, let's just cancel the trip. Work had been overwhelming, and I wasn't sure I could finish everything before our planned vacation. So I hadn't brought it up. I didn't think much of it and agreed. Then suddenly, he shot me a furious glare, stood up, and slammed the door behind him. The loud slam echoed in my ears, and only then did I realize he had been speaking in reverse. He was really looking forward to that trip. So why couldn't he just say so? That was the first time I felt a deep disappointment in Nicholas, worn out in both body and soul. Chapter 3. I pushed down all those negative emotions. During my lunch break, I contacted a locksmith. Nicholas would never give me the code, but my things were still at his place. I had to get them back. The moment the door opened, Nicholas was sitting on the living room sofa, his face so dark it looked like it could drip ink. The locksmith looked at me, confused. I transferred him the payment and headed straight upstairs to the bedroom. Cressida, Nicholas called out. You just bring strangers into this house like it's nothing? Is this how you treat what you call our home? The year I graduated from university, my parents died in a car accident. I was alone for a long time. Sometimes, seeing families of 3 together made me feel an overwhelming sense of longing and sadness. After getting together with Nicholas, we shared a cramped rental apartment for a while until he made it big with his business and bought this house. That day, he placed the keys in my hand and promised, "You wanted a home, didn't you? I'm giving it to you." It was one of the rare times he expressed his feelings directly. I cherished it deeply and always saw this place as our shared home, just for the two of us. I used to think that if things fell apart, Nicholas would be the one to leave without hesitation, but I never expected that the one walking away would be me. Nicholas kept going with his accusations. What are you even trying to pull? You're the one who did something wrong. I cut him off. It doesn't matter anymore. We've broken up. Nicholas froze, standing there stunned. I walked past him to pack my things. The whole house was full of memories tied to Nicholas. He once held me close on the sofa to watch movies. brushed his teeth in the bathroom using our couple's mugs, stood with me on the balcony watching fireworks. The moment the night lit up, he kissed me passionately with his arm wrapped around my waist. But somewhere along the way, every time I opened that door, I was met with nothing but suffocating pressure. Nicholas seemed to forget the promise he made. After every argument, he would just stay at his office. If I didn't apologize, he would never come home. I'd apologized so many times before. I didn't want to anymore. When I came downstairs with my suitcase, Nicholas was still standing in the same spot. I was going to ignore him and just walk out. But as we passed, he grabbed my hand. "Take back what you just said." "No." The vein on Nicholas's forehead twitched. He gritted his teeth and said through clenched anger, "Fine, we're done then. Don't you ever come looking for me again." He pulled out his phone, added me to his block list, then pointed at the door and shouted, "Get out." Chapter 4. Team Lead Cressida. "Are you okay?" The new guy was a fresh graduate. Seeing I didn't look well, he asked out of concern. I shook my head to say I was fine and continued explaining the project flow to him. Cashin suddenly rushed over and pulled the new guy away to work on something else, then lowered his voice and said to me, "You're still talking to him? Aren't you afraid Nicholas will get jealous?" I was confused. Cashin explained that on our 5th anniversary, Nicholas had planned to pick me up early, but when he saw me chatting and laughing with the new guy, he got mad and drove off alone. So that's why he locked me out. "You've got to be more careful," Cashin sighed. "Stop provoking him. I've already broken up with him." Cashin stared at me for a while. Once he confirmed I wasn't joking, he said in shock, "For real? No way, Nicholas really cares about you. I bet he's squatting in a corner crying right now." Afraid I wouldn't believe him, Cashin immediately called Nicholas. The call was picked up quickly. Yeah, just one word, but it carried such deep, heavy sorrow. I'd heard his voice countless times. It was always low and magnetic, usually laced with a bit of arrogance in the way it trailed off, but never had it sounded this defeated. Cashin shot me a look and said into the phone, "Cressida's right here next to me. If you've got anything to say, now's the time." The moment he realized I was there, Nicholas's tone changed instantly. "There's nothing to say between us. I'm hanging up." Cashin looked incredibly awkward. Maybe it was because I used to be too passive, but Nicholas never took my breakup seriously. After all, those 2 words, break up, were too heavy. I never dared say them lightly, because I knew, once I said them out loud, there would be no going back. And it meant, this time, I really wanted to end things with him. Chapter 5. Just before the end of the workday, the office suddenly became lively. I heard some colleagues saying, "Did you see that guy in the boss's office? He's so handsome, way better looking than a celebrity. I heard he's a friend of the boss. I'm going to beg the boss for his contact info later." Coward, why don't you just ask the guy himself? As Lisa said this, she suddenly leaned in toward me. "Little Cressida, you were out meeting with a client earlier and missed him. I secretly took a picture so you could feast your eyes." She handed me her phone, and sure enough, it was Nicholas. Back then, Nicholas used to drop me off at work but never got out of the car. My coworkers knew I had a boyfriend, but no one knew what he looked like. Suddenly, the office door opened from the inside. Nicholas walked out, heading toward the restroom. His eyes lit up when he saw me at my desk. I stayed focused on my work, not even glancing at him. His expression visibly darkened. He let out a cold snort and walked off, ignoring me entirely. The chatter among the coworkers continued. But honestly, super handsome guys usually have some kind of personality flaw. Better to just admire from afar, don't get involved. Y'all are too timid. With a face like that, I could put up with anything. Watch me bag him. Lisa was all in. She even treated the whole office to coffee. Nicholas's cup? She delivered it personally. I watched as Nicholas accepted it graciously and thanked her politely. Just like that, the two of them exchanged contact info. During the exchange, Nicholas even shot me a quick glance, as if to say, "If you don't appreciate me, someone else will." Chapter 6. For a full week, Nicholas showed up at the office every single day. At first, he would still shoot me a glare, like he was sulking, but after a few days, his gaze didn't even pause on me. Instead, he got closer and closer to Lisa. Everyone in the office was saying they were practically a thing already. Cashin pulled me aside. You're just gonna sit here and do nothing? If you don't make a move, Nicholas is really going to end up with someone else. I asked him. He's the one playing the flirt, why aren't you telling him to cut it out? Cashin said. With that stubborn temper of his. He won't listen. You two have been together for so many years, it'd be such a shame to just throw it away. After learning about how things were between Nicholas and me, my best friend had sat me down for a long, late-night talk. She patiently broke down my situation and, both openly and subtly, tried to persuade me to leave him. But Nicholas's friends had the exact opposite attitude. Every time we fought, they'd try to convince me to make up with him. It wasn't until much later that I realized those on the outside could clearly see who was the one constantly compromising in the relationship, and who was the one benefiting from it all. I just realized it too late, which is why the breakup ended with me looking so pathetic. Suddenly, cheers erupted around me, breaking my train of thought. I followed the noise and saw Nicholas giving Lisa a bracelet. Lisa looked flustered. It was just a cup of coffee, you really didn't have to. Nicholas smiled gently. I really liked the taste. So I wanted to thank you. Please, take it. A subtle, flirtatious tension floated in the air. I heard someone in the crowd sigh. So romantic. Chapter 7. Nicholas was indeed a romantic man. He remembered every holiday and planned meticulously. Last Valentine's Day, he booked a perfect beach view table at the Hilton and invited me to watch the seaside light show. As the golden lights danced across the water, Nicholas handed me a huge bouquet of vibrant red roses. I, in turn, put on the cufflinks I had prepared for him. A passing tourist caught the moment on video and posted it online. The comments were flooded with people calling us a match made in heaven. But the actual mood that day was far from lovely. Nicholas was furious, constantly nitpicking. Hideous. I've never seen cufflinks this ugly. You've completely ruined my aesthetic. Cressida, don't ever try to be clever and buy me things again. Hearing that hurt more than I let on. I had carefully picked out those cufflinks after consulting many industry professionals. But if Nicholas didn't like them, it didn't matter how much thought or effort I had put in. Later, Cashin told me the truth wasn't as simple as it seemed. Nicholas had grown up with a silver spoon in his mouth. To him, I was just an ordinary girl. He hated seeing me overworking myself to exhaustion just to afford expensive gifts for him. So instead, he chose to discourage me through cruel words. But now, seeing how gently he spoke to Lisa, that delayed sting in my chest returned. So it was possible for him to say thank you for a gift. He wasn't always harsh. He could offer emotional warmth, just not to me. I could no longer tell which of his cold behaviors were his way of caring, and which were simply disdain. His love was always buried deep beneath layers of ice, and when I opened my arms to embrace it, all I felt was bone-chilling cold. Chapter 8. I looked away and turned to leave. Behind me, someone said Lisa was planning to confess her feelings to Nicholas today. But after work, Lisa stormed up to me, furious. She slapped me across the face and yelled, Cressida, stop pretending to be some innocent little saint. Nicholas is your boyfriend, why didn't you say anything? You just sat there watching me make a fool of myself? I was so nice to you, and this is how you pay me back, with some shady girl-on-girl sabotage? You two dogs deserve each other. I can't even stand the sight of you. Her outburst drew a lot of attention. People passing by began to stare, whispering. My cheek throbbed with pain, but my eyes were fixed on Nicholas walking toward us. This is what you wanted? I asked. Nicholas turned his head, his tone still arrogant and proud. You did something wrong and still refused to apologize. What did you expect? A deep sense of helplessness surged through me. I didn't want to deal with him anymore, so I walked off quickly. Nicholas chased after me and grabbed my hand. You're going the wrong way, that's not the direction home. He probably didn't even realize I hadn't been back to that so-called home in days. I yanked my hand free, more serious than I'd ever been. Nicholas, we have nothing to do with each other anymore. Leave me alone. A flicker of panic flashed through Nicholas's eyes. While he stood frozen, I opened the car door, got in the driver's seat, rolled up the window, and drove away. In the rearview mirror, his figure grew smaller and smaller until it disappeared. Chapter 9. I applied for some annual leave from work and booked a flight back to my hometown. Right before I left, I got an unexpected phone call. The person on the line said, "Do you have a moment? Let's talk." In a quiet cafe, Gideon sat across from me. He was Nicholas's older brother. Back when I first got together with Nicholas, his family didn't approve of me. They insisted he break up with me. Nicholas refused, fiercely. He cut ties with his family over it. Gideon was the only one he stayed in touch with. He had watched Nicholas grow up and was the only person who supported our relationship. Nicholas has been drinking himself to sleep every night lately. Did you know that? Gideon frowned, his voice full of reproach. He told me you're leaving him, Cressida. He turned his back on his parents for you. How can you abandon him now? Do I even need to tell you how much he loves you? I knew, clearly, that Nicholas loved me, just as much as I loved him, but his love was always tightly wrapped, never leaking out, whereas mine was worn openly on my sleeve, exposed and unguarded. It wasn't fair. I never understood why Nicholas became this way. Gideon explained. Nicholas had a girlfriend in college, his first love. He was young and didn't know how to pace himself. He clung to her constantly. 10 cringe texts a minute wasn't unusual. But his intensity overwhelmed her. Eventually, they broke up. Since then, he's never been the same. He just doesn't know how to show love anymore. It's either too much or not enough. Cressida, maybe you should give him another chance. Gideon said it like it was obvious. But haven't I already given him enough chances? Why should I have to carry the baggage of his past relationship? My love had already been chipped away by his endless cold remarks. I didn't want anything to do with him anymore. Chapter 10. My hometown is a coastal city. The moment I stepped off the plane, I felt like I could smell the salt in the sea breeze. Back at the house where I grew up, I cleaned everything thoroughly and then laid down for a proper nap. That night, my dreams were free from chaos. I slept more soundly than I had in a long time. The next day, Nicholas called. Cressida, where did you run off to? I placed the lilies I'd just bought into a vase and replied in a neutral tone. Does it have anything to do with you? Just a reminder. Nicholas, you're not my boyfriend. There was a pause on the other end before he finally spoke again. I'm not calling to make up or anything. There's still a bunch of your stuff at the house. It's taking up space and getting on my nerves. Come get it. I didn't want to set foot in that place ever again. So I said, just throw it all out. Throw it all out? There was a trace of panic in Nicholas's voice. The keepsake with our names engraved on it. The anniversary photo album you made. The hand-drawn postcards I mailed you. You don't want any of it? No, none of it. I paused. Then added, the garbage truck comes at 4 this afternoon. If you toss them now, they'll be gone before you know it. Nicholas growled through gritted teeth. Fine, I'll throw everything out. Don't come crying to me later. Nicholas. I cut him off. Do you have to talk to me like this every single time? I could hear his breathing grow ragged through the receiver, but I still had more to say. To be honest, I've been done with your personality for a long time. I've wanted to break up for a while now. You got your heart broken by your first love? Then go back to her. Why dump all your emotional baggage on me? What am I? Some kind of pathetic emotional trash bin? I'm really done. If you have even a shred of decency left, just let us end this cleanly. I hung up decisively. Nicholas didn't call again after that, and I was more than happy with the peace. I stayed home for 3 full days before finally heading out. While standing across the street from some shops, trying to decide which restaurant to eat lunch at, a familiar voice suddenly called out from behind me. Cressida? Chapter 11. At the Chinese restaurant, Kevin was peeling shrimp for me. When did you get back? Why didn't you contact me? How could I have the nerve to? Kevin and I grew up in the same courtyard. We were close since we were little. He was like a half-brother to me, always looking out for me. After my parents passed away, I spiraled for a long time. My mental state wasn't great. Kevin was worried I'd do something reckless, so he came to my house every day to cook for me, to take me out for fresh air. In my memory, he was always considerate, patient, and kind. The only time he ever got mad at me was when I pushed myself too hard trying to gain Nicholas's parents' approval. I ended up hospitalized with stomach bleeding from the stress. Kevin's eyes turned red. He's that amazing? Worth ruining your health over? Back then, I told him firmly that Nicholas was worth everything I gave. Maybe he realized I was beyond saving. Because he didn't argue, he just quietly walked away. Shortly after, he was transferred to the overseas branch of his company, and he was gone for many years. I never saw him again. I didn't expect him to have returned home, too. Even after so much time, Kevin could still read me like a book. He asked, "Fought with Nicholas?" I shook my head. We broke up. I wasn't sure why, but back when Nicholas would hurt me with his coldness, I always told myself to just endure it and move on. But seeing Kevin again, remembering everything from the past, I suddenly felt a wave of buried grievance rising to the surface. I couldn't hold it in and said softly, "Kevin, I got dumped." He blinked, then sighed with helpless affection. "Got it. I'll go buy fireworks later. When I was a kid, I loved fireworks. Whenever I was feeling down, Kevin would buy a few and take me to the seaside cliffs so I could light them off to my heart's content. It became a tradition that followed me into adulthood. Suddenly I remembered, Nicholas had once promised to come back to my hometown and light fireworks with me. But things kept getting in the way. And it never happened. It never will. What are you thinking about? Kevin's voice snapped me out of it. I realized I'd been frozen in place, holding a piece of food with my chopsticks without eating, and some of the oil had dripped onto my collar. Kevin reached over with a napkin to wipe it off for me. His clean scent drifted toward me as he leaned in. I froze, caught off guard, my cheeks flushing slightly. I was about to thank him, when a voice cold as ice cut through the moment. "What are you two doing?" Chapter 12. Nicholas stood at the doorway, his face full of anger, eyes locked onto me with a cold, intense stare. "Cressida, I thought you came home to clear your head, but it turns out you're here flirting with other men behind my back." "Shut up," Kevin snapped, his tone sharp with anger. "Don't slander her. Cressida hasn't done anything wrong." Nicholas turned to him, eyes full of contempt. "And who the hell are you to even mention my girlfriend?" I held Kevin back just as he was about to step forward, and said to Nicholas, "If you have something to say, let's talk outside. Don't make a scene in here." Nicholas's gaze fell to my hand, which was holding Kevin back. His eyes lit up with smugness and provocation as he raised an eyebrow at Kevin, then turned and walked out. Kevin, concerned, said, "I'm coming with you." I shook my head, signaling that I could handle it. Nicholas had driven here. He opened the trunk, and out came the commemorative token, the photo album, the postcards, all the things he said over the phone that he would throw away. He had brought them all, handing them to me one by one. That day, I took out your things and went through each of them. Only then did I realize how many memories we've had over the past 5 years. I couldn't bear to throw them out. "Please keep them, all right?" "I also brought fireworks. Didn't you once say you wanted to set them off here, in the place where you grew up? How about tonight? It's been a long time since you've been home, and my schedule's not busy lately. I can stay here with you." I looked at him calmly and let out a sigh. "Nicholas, you could just say sorry. You know." His eyes instantly reddened. He lowered his head, and after a moment, muttered, "I'm sorry." The apology felt like a long overdue drizzle, far too late to moisten soil that had long dried and cracked. Still, it gave some closure to the past 5 years of my life. I nodded and turned to leave. Nicholas hurriedly grabbed my hand. Drops of hot tears landed in my palm. "Let's not break up, okay? I'll change everything you don't like. Just, don't leave me." Only now, after exhausting every old trick and still failing to make me come back, did he finally lower himself. I stepped back, exhausted. "It's too late. I've already given you too many chances, and you never appreciated any of them. You took advantage of my tolerance, my willingness to bend, and used love as an excuse to justify your cruel behavior. That's not Sundara, Nicholas. That's just selfishness." His face went pale, and he shook his head in denial. "No, it's not like that. I cut ties with my family for you. Cressida, I only have you. You can't leave me." Nicholas gripped my hand tightly like it was the last thread keeping him afloat. But he was the one who hadn't tried hard enough when it truly mattered. "Did you ever try to persuade your parents? Did you ever fight for me?" I looked at his tears, unmoved. "You didn't. Even when I became one of the top designers in the industry, you still never said a single good word about me to them." He always claimed he betrayed his family for me, just to make me feel guilty, so I'd stay. But in truth, all he ever had to do was look back, and his family would have accepted him again. Otherwise, why would they still let him keep in touch with Gideon all these years? I pried his fingers off mine, one by one. Let's end this, for good. Chapter 13. Nicholas left. At first, he was set on throwing a tantrum, determined to stay by my side. But then Gideon called. His father had been hospitalized with a serious illness. He had no choice but to go back. Sometimes, I honestly envy Nicholas. No matter what happens, he always has a home to return to, as long as he wants to. But me? I'm all alone. He said I was all he had. But in truth, he was all I had. On my first day back at work after my leave, Lisa came to find me. She looked sincerely apologetic. I'm really sorry about what happened that day. Cashin told me afterward that you and Nicholas had already broken up. I totally misunderstood. I told her not to worry about it, just based on how Nicholas acted that day. I could already guess he intentionally kept the truth vague so Lisa would fall into his trap. He wanted me to get jealous. Lisa, feeling guilty, treated me to a fancy meal. After realizing what kind of person Nicholas was, she looked downright disgusted. She advised me, any man who keeps bothering you after a breakup isn't worth it. Don't let yourself get soft. I won't. He's already lost the right to my softness. To make my commute easier, I rented an apartment near the office. Funny enough, Kevin lives next door. He's now working at HQ again and will be staying long-term. When he has spare time, he comes over and cooks. His skills haven't changed one bit. As the smell of cooking filled my kitchen, I realized, maybe I wasn't so alone after all. After dinner that evening, Kevin and I went out for a walk. Then I heard a familiar male voice. Cressida. Nicholas was standing by a street lamp not far away. The dim light cast shadows on his face, making him look gaunt and hollow. Ignoring Kevin's alert and hostile gaze, he walked straight toward me. He opened a finely wrapped box. Inside were 2 rings. This was the anniversary gift I prepared for you. If I had given you this that day, instead of locking you out of the house, would things have ended differently? His voice trembled slightly, like he was on the edge of breaking. Nicholas was wrong. He thought it was that one incident that made me stop forgiving him. But disappointment isn't like a single downpour that soaks you. It's the slow, creeping dampness that seeps in over time until one day you realize you're already drenched. Maybe my response was too cold, because despair began to cloud Nicholas's eyes. I've been learning how to love better. I really have changed. Just give me one more chance. Just one. I shook my head. I used to compromise because I loved you, but now, I can't find a single ounce of love left. Nicholas's shoulders slumped in defeat. He stepped forward and hugged me tightly, so tight it hurt, like he was saying goodbye for the last time. I'm sorry. Then he let go, and walked out of my life. Chapter 14. After that, Nicholas disappeared from my life for quite a while, just quietly, as if he had never been there at all, until one weekend afternoon, when I went out to satisfy a dessert craving, only to be blocked by a black Maybach. The tinted window rolled down, revealing a face both elegant and commanding. She looked at me and said, Miss Cressida, shall we talk? I could barely remember the first time I met Nicholas's mother. All I recalled was the grand, opulent hall, its elaborate chandelier casting a cold, cutting light. Even with Nicholas holding my hand, I couldn't feel a shred of warmth. The poised lady of the house stood at the top of the staircase, looking down at me as if from a throne, and said coolly, not presentable. But now, facing me again, her sharp edge seemed somewhat softened. Mrs. Ning took a sip of coffee and said gently, Miss Cressida, I've read your resume. I must admit, you're more impressive than I originally thought. But to marry into our family, you still fall a bit short. Still, Nicholas's feelings for you go beyond what I expected. So, for his sake, I'm willing to take a step back. Her tone, like a royal bestowing favor, made me want to laugh. I answered firmly, Mrs. Ning, I'm only sitting here out of respect for you as an elder. Please offer me the same courtesy. There's no need to elevate your son. From the beginning, I never saw myself as beneath him. If anything, it's him who doesn't deserve my love. Mrs. Ning stared at me for a couple of seconds, then suddenly gave a small smile and said to the phone on the table, "Heard that?" Nicholas's raspy voice came through the speaker slowly. "Yeah. Since you heard it, pull yourself together." Mrs. Ning snapped. "She doesn't want you anymore. What's the point of moping around? Go find someone new already." I was speechless. So this meeting was just a probe to gauge where I stood. Was she afraid I'd change my mind and end up reeling her son back in? In some twisted way, mother and son were quite alike. Neither of them ever said what they really meant. Mrs. Ning put down the phone and turned back to me. "To be honest, I admire who you are now much more than when you used to trail behind Nicholas Ning." I accepted the compliment, though like always, it was soaked in arrogance. I took it as a joke and let it pass. My life gradually returned to peace. Occasionally, I'd hear about Nicholas from Cashin. He said Nicholas had once again rejected a marriage arrangement set up by the Ning family, which led to Mr. Ning beating him badly in a rage. "You think maybe he still can't let someone go?" I ignored the implication in Cashin's voice, slung my bag over my shoulder, and gave him a faint smile. "Boss, it's after hours, stop blocking the door." It had rained all day. The air was chilly and damp. I buttoned up my coat, didn't want to catch a cold and get scolded by Kevin. Outside the office, Kevin was already waiting with an umbrella. His tall, straight figure looked like a graceful sculpture against the curtain of rain, catching more than a few admiring glances. One woman even walked up to ask for his number. Kevin politely declined. He said there was someone he had been waiting on for many years. The woman left, visibly disappointed. He turned and saw me, his expression freezing for a moment. I stepped under his umbrella and hooked my arm around his. "Why are you just standing there like a statue? Let's go home." He had waited this long. From now on, I wasn't going to let him wait any longer. And just as the sky began to clear, he took my hand, like he had when we were kids, when he found me after I'd gotten lost, and said gently, "Come on, let's go home."